Hi, and welcome to the Disappearing Scar. As always, my name is Scott Williams, and today we're going to talk about my Mohawk, and more generally how my recovery has been going. At this point, it's 12 days out, and my hair has already started to regrow. And as a little treat for myself, I decided to give myself a Mohawk for a week or two, since I had to shave my head anyways. Now I can't tell. I like to tell people I can't tell now if people are staring at my scar or the crazy hair. And as you can see, the scar is healing very nicely. Um, I honestly think in about 2 or 3 weeks you're not going to be able to see it. So, that I think is probably the greatest achievement for me so far. A couple days ago, I met with the nurse practitioner. She took the stitches out, and I think really that's what made the biggest change. It's just having those stitches out. It seemed like within a couple hours, the scar was probably like a third of what it used to be. Um, Having the stitches taken out was a little irritating, but not a big deal at all. On the more exciting front, she told me at this point there's not really anything I can do to damage the brain. If I exert myself too much, if I bend over the wrong way, it's not like something catastrophic is going to happen. It's just that you're going to feel it, and you do. At this point, I still can't really move my head all that much in terms of bending over to pick something up or going up a lot of stairs. Those are kind of things that I can still get a little shock headache. That's kind of how I typify it. But in terms of living my days, it's really not that bad. There are a lot of headaches, obviously, but I've been able to get out and take care of my dog, go for walks. I went to a movie today actually, and I had a couple of headaches, which made that tough. But I think it's important to do these things that push yourself a little bit. If you sit in your room all day and do nothing but sleep, your brain's not going to recover as quickly. At the end of the day, your brain is a lot like every other part of your body. If it just sits there and does nothing, it's not going to improve nearly as fast. That being said, I'm not saying that I'm about to go back to yoga or take up deep sea diving this week or anything like that. There are still a lot of limitations at this point, but I'm doing everything by myself. I just have to be careful, basically, which I would think at this point everyone would be doing anyways. In terms of meds, I've been weaning myself off the Percocets. At this point, I'm down to 2 or 3 a day, and I think my goal for this week is really to get off of them completely, because that's really the next step in terms of being able to drive or being able to have alcohol, things like that. The stipulation of that is really just being off the narcotics more than anything else. I can't say that I really want to pound a bunch of beers at this point, but it would be nice to be able to if I did want to. So that's my goal for the next week. Activity-wise, as I mentioned, I've been reading, going for walks, walking the dog. I actually did a tiny little bit of weightlifting today with some resistance bands just to see what would happen. It was a little strenuous. I did get a little bit of a headache at the end, so I think that was my body was telling me, you're not far from being able to do that, but you're not quite there. So that was a little frustrating, but a little exciting too because it wasn't far off. And those are the kind of little things you have to look for to keep yourself going and keep positive. It's tough and it's draining, but the good things outweigh the bad. One thing that I've noticed, which is kind of interesting, is that it takes less and less to frustrate me. 3 or 4 days out, it would take a lot to upset me, whereas now it could just be, feeling faint at the end of a walk or, not being able to finish a chapter in the book. These things upset me now, which you would think would be really frustrating, but on another level, they're actually great because that means that I'm getting closer and closer to, what I would consider a normal day. And with that, the next step I'm taking towards getting back to normal is going back to work. Now, for most people who have this kind of surgery, the doctors, nurses, anyone who's familiar with it will say 4 to 6 weeks, don't even think about going back until then. For me, as someone who is younger and who didn't have any damage and who didn't have any, prior issues. My recovery, I think, has been a lot quicker than what I would typify as average, and so I'm going to be going back to work tomorrow. Now, I'm fortunate because my job and my bosses are perfectly okay with me working, what I feel I can do for a couple weeks. And I think this is going to be a much better approach than taking a cold turkey and then going back full time. I think really the key to success is ramping up slowly, just as it's been with walking, eating, everything else. So my goal is to do a couple hours tomorrow, maybe do a couple hours the next day from home, see how I feel things out, and I think that's going to be a much more successful approach to getting back to work than to sit, and do nothing for some long period of time and then all of a sudden go back full time. I just think that shock is going to be a lot tougher than taking it a little, in a piecemeal format, a little bit at a time. So, I'm hoping that in the next 2 or 3 weeks I'll be able to ramp up slowly and eventually get to full time rather than to wait that whole period and then start full time. Not only because it'll be, I think, easier for me, but obviously it's a lot easier on my company. It's a lot easier on my role. It makes the office it makes the office function a lot better. So that's what we're going to do this week, and hopefully I'll report back at the end of the week with some good news. And with that, I bid you adieu. So keep checking the blog, keep seeing what happens. If you can't tell, if you get bored, a nice thing to do is look at the previous video and look at my head versus now. I think the reduction in swelling is pretty palpable. I think if you look at the last video, I look like a beat up hockey player, whereas now I just kind of look like a punk rocker with the haircut and the scar. So certainly a lot of progress has been made in this last week or so, and hopefully I'll keep progressing at as quick of a rate as I have. So stick around and see how it works. Thanks.